Hello, esteemed viewers out there. You're my great student, and it's so good to have you once more. Now I'm introducing you to a new series of our videos, and this video is going to be on WAEC. So if you are taking exams on WAEC, stay tuned, and we are going to give you some videos that will help you take your exams, especially mathematics, and then come out with a very good grade. I trust you're going to enjoy this series of WAEC video. Now we're going to look at the introductory part, the number basis, which is the first topic we should take in your syllabus. Now we are going to, in this series of WAEC video, we're going to look at videos from the basis to the complex parts of your syllabus, so that we will take you from the basis down to the top, where you can excel and start solving mathematics greatly. Now, to start with, I want to introduce you to the first topic we'll be taking on our mathematics series of WAEC videos, and that will be number basis. Now, I want you to stay tuned as I will be introducing you to that topic. Number basis. At the end of this video, you should be able to convert from one number base to base 10 and vice versa. 2. Convert from one base to another base. And 3. Perform the basic operations, which are addition, subtraction, and multiplication in number basis. But before that, now let's look at the challenge question for this topic, number basis. The seems pretty difficult, right? But stay tuned and locked in to the end of this video to see solutions to these questions. I promise you, we'll walk you through the solution and we're going to solve them together. Now, to begin with, let's delve deeply now into the introduction of number basis. As you've been taught in school, number bases are a system of counting in which certain units makes up a bundle. Now, the bundle thus forms the next place value. The placing of the next digit shows what we call the value. Now, counting of number bases is generally done in base 10. And this base 10 is sometimes called the decimal or the denary. Now, it should be noted that base 2 is also called the binary, which is very important due to its use in computer application. While base 8, most of the time, you hear them call it the octal numbers. Now, to carry out operations in number bases, there are key points you need to note. And these key notes will be explained very well in this topic. Now, there are 6 key notes I want you to take note of. Number 1, when you are performing this basic operation, addition, subtraction, multiplication and division of number bases, it is very advisable to convert, I repeat, convert all the given values to base 10, and if necessary or required, you convert back to the needed base to get your result. For example, if you are given a question like 6R7 in base 8 equal to 511 in base 9, and you are required to look for R, take note, you need to convert the base 8 and base 9 to base 10 so that you can work on a common base, so for you to get your R. Now let's look at number 2. Number 2, keynote 2 says when converting from one basis, it can be base 2, base 3, base 4, base 5, etc. to base 10. What do you need to do? This conversion involves 2 methods. I use 2 methods, and the first is power expansion method and the second successive multiplication method. Now, if you are sitting for WAEC, I want you to take note of these 2 methods because they can make solving this question on number basis pretty easy for you. Now, let's look at the third keynote. Conversion of base 10 to other bases. If you want to convert from base 10 to other bases, this involves continuous division of the given number in base 10 by the required base to be converted to. Now, such that at the end of each division stage, that the remainder, including the zeros, are recorded until the division is completed. Now, keynote 4. When you are converting from one base to another, let's say you are base 4. This involves the conversion of one of the base to base 10 and then converting the resulting base 10 value to be required or expected to the required or expected base using continuous division. Now, of great noteworthy is the rules governing number bases, and that is what keynote 5 and 6 will tell you about. Now let's look at keynote 5, addition rule on number bases. Now on number bases, if you are adding, 0 plus 0 will be equal to 0, 0 plus 1 will be equal to 1, 1 plus 0 will be equal to 1. Now 1 plus 1 will be equal to 10. In this instance, you have to write 0 and carry 1. Now if you are asked to add 1 plus 1 plus 1 will be equal to 11. In this instance, you write 1 and you carry 1. Now, you might also be required to add 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. That will give you 100. Now in this instance, you want to write 00 and then carry what? 1. So whenever you are given any question on number bases that requires addition of base 2 numbers, use this rule and you'll get an accurate result. Now let's look at the final keynote, keynote 6, the subtraction rule. Now when carrying out subtraction rule on base 2 numbers, you should note that if you are subtracting 0 minus 1, normally it's not possible, it won't go. All you need to do is to borrow 1 to make that 1 10. And then 10 minus 1 will now give you 1. Now normally when you are subtracting 0 minus 0 on normal level, it's going to give you 0. Now normally on number basis, 1 minus 1 will also give you what? 0. And also 1 minus 0 will be equal to 1. I don't want you to be startled with all these zeros and 1. When we start solving questions, you will see how most of these keynotes are being applied, and you will now see that applying these keynotes are very, very easy, and they will make solving number bases very easy for you. Now to start with, let's look at the first sample question we'll be taking on this topic, number bases. We'll look at sample question 1. Alright, now let's look at the first sample question. As I told you, we need to solve this together. Now I want you to follow along as we solve. I told you when we were talking about the keynotes that whenever you are given any two questions with different bases, all you need to do is to convert the two bases according to our first keynote, keynote 1, to a common base, and that is base 10, so as to make your solutions very easy and accurate. Now let's go. We're going to look at converting 32 base 4 equal to 22 base x. Now we'll convert this to base 10. Now let's go. Converting this to base 10 using our power expansion method is going to give us 3 times 4 plus what? 2 times 4. Recall, this will be 0 and this will be 1. This will now be equal to 2 times x plus what? 2 times x. And this will be raised to power 0 and this will be raised to power 1. Now let's go about this. 3 times 4, 4 raised to power 1 is 4. 3 times 4 will give us 12 plus 2 times, remember our indices, we're going to take that in subsequent topics. Anything raised to power 0 is 1, so this will give us 1. This will be equal to 2 times x as usual, then plus 2 times 1. So this will give us 12 plus 2 equal to what? 2x plus what? 2. Now this will give us 14, right? Good. Now this will be equal to 2x plus 2. Now have you heard about collecting like terms? When you collect like terms, this will give us what? This will come over here, and this will give us 14 minus 2 equal to 2x. Now our 2x now will now be equal to 14 minus 2 will give us 12. So therefore, finally, our x, if we divide both sides by 2, will be equal to 12 divided by 2. In this instance, our x will be equal to what? The 6. Remember the question, you are asked to look for the value of what? Of x. So your value for x for this equation will be equal to 2. You see, the question might seem very difficult, but then it's easy to carry out. Now let's look at another form your questions can come on. Let's look at sample 2. So right now, let's look at the second sample question. It's going to be interesting. Now, we want to look at a different question entirely from the former one we took. This time around, you are asked to look at the sum of, to find this. You are told that the sum of 101,11011 base 2, 11111 base 2, and 100 this. You are required to find what? You are required to find m and what? And n. Now in this instance, m is missing, n is missing. You are asked to look for the missing value. Now we are going to look at keynote 5. That is the addition rule. Now let's apply the addition rule in solving this question. Now remember what I told you. Once you are given these, they are all in base 2. We can go about our addition straightforwardly using those rules. Now let's bring out the questions. We have the first question is 11011 is in base 2. The next one is 11111 is in base 2. Then the last one is 10000 and is in base 2. Now let's carry out our addition. Now take note as we're going to carry out this addition. Remember the addition rule I taught you, right? I guess you still remember. Now we have 1 plus 1. Remember what I told you? 1 plus 1 is equal to 10. Plus 0 is still 10. You write a 0 and you carry what? You carry 1. Now let's go about this. 1 plus 1 will give you a 10. 10 plus 1 is going to give you 11. Now 11 plus 0 is going to give you 11. You write 1 and then you carry 1. Now let's go. 1 plus 0 is going to give you 1. 1 plus 1 is going to give you a 10. 10 plus 0 is going to give you a 0. Then you carry what? 10 plus 0 is still going to give you 10. You write your 0 and you carry 1. Now let's go to this. 1 plus 1 is going to give you 10. 10 plus 1 is going to give you 11. 11 plus 0 is going to give you still 11. You write 1 and then you carry 1. Remember, all these are just the remainder. The remainders. Now we have 4 ones here. Now 1 plus 1 is equal to 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. Now 11 plus 1 is going to give you 100 according to number basis. Now in this instance, you write 00 and you carry what? 1, which is the final one, will be carrying over. Now all these places are assumed to be 0 because there is no value. So 1 plus 0 is going to give us 1. So finally, our results will be equal to this. And when we match this with what is given here, this is the value for m, and this is the value for n. So from our initial equation, our m now will now be equal to 0 and our n will be equal to 1. Remember, this is an objective question. So you'll be given options. So in your options, you'll be seeing 0 and then 1. Pretty easy. Now I want to look at the final question. And this question is going to be a different question in which you will be asked to find a value of either y or x. Let's look at the final sample. Let's look at, we are given y equal to 23 base 5 plus 101 base 3. Now to go about solving this, let's look at converting everything to base, to one common base. Remember I told you that it's very important. So we are going to convert this to a common base, and then we'll look for our value, look for the value of y, and at the end we'll convert the value of y, which will be in base 10, back to base 2. Now let's go about this. Our y now will now be equal to 2 times, now let's look at 23 first. 23. Remember I told you that we have two methods of converting from other bases to base 10. Now I'm going to use the first method, which is a successive multiplication method, so that you can get familiarized to using that method. So we are going to convert 25 to base 10. Then this time around, I showed you in the keynote that we'll use two methods. I myself think better. But this time around, I'm going to show two samples, how to use these two methods. The first will be looking at the successive multiplication method. Now we have 23 base 5 to base 10. If I want to change that, this will be equal to 2 times the base is 5. That will be equal to 10 plus the next one, the next number, that will be 3. So 10 plus 3 will give you what? 13. So if you have another number, you can still multiply this by 5, and on it will go that way. You multiply, you add, you multiply, you add. But this time around, we'll stop at 13 base 10. That is the successive multiplication method. We've converted 23 base 5 to base 10. Now let's look at converting 101 base 3 into base 10. Now we'll use the power expansion method. That will give us 1 times 3 plus 0 times 3 plus 1 times 3. And this will be 0, 1, and what? 2. If you divide this further, 2 raised to power 3 is 9. 9 plus 0 times this will give you 0. Plus 3 raised to power 1 is 1, right? Good. 1 times 1 will give us 1. So generally, this will give us 10 base what? Base 10. So our y now will now be equal to the value of this 13 base 10 plus 10 base 10. Now because both of them are of the same base, we can easily do what? Add. So our y now will now be equal to 23 base 10. Now remember the question, you are asked to leave your answer in base what? 2. So now we're going to see how we can convert our answer back to base 2. Now we are going to use this long division method, whereby after division, we will now be able to look at the remainders, and the remainders will be the result. Now let's go. We are converting 23 base 10 back to base 2. This will give you 23, and we are multiplying it by 2. That is the base in which we are converting to. 23 times this will give you what? 23 divided by 2. This will give you 1, and this will give you what? 1. Remainder what? 1. Because 11 times 2 will give you 22, remainder 1. Now 2 will go. Now 11 divided by 2 will give you 5. 5 times 2 is 10. Our remainder will be what? 1. Now let's go again. 2 divided by 5 will give you what? 2. Remainder what? 1. 2 divided by 2 will give you 1. Remainder what? 0. And now 2 divided by 1 will give you 0. Remainder what? 1. This one that is here. So now Let's look at the solution. If you take this up from the bottom to the top, that will be the answer. Now our 23 base 10 will now be equal to 1, 0, 1, 1, 1 in base what? In base 2. So we see that finally this question that was given to us, our y now will now 0, 1, 1. That's our final solution. Now you see, it's very, very, very simple. Now you can go about solving questions like this, and I assure you I gave you some questions like this in the quizzes. I want you to go back, sit down tight, look at the series, the quizzes that will be displayed on the screen. Take your time to solve them, as most of these questions are questions from the objective part 1 of your WAEC question. I want you to sit back tight, go through them, and if you have any question, feel free to join our community, newtrackmathematics.com.ng. Register and drop your questions there. We'll be very happy to get a solution to your question. Thank you, and make sure that you take care and go about the quizzes that is displayed on your screen.